Hello, everyone. It is July 23rd, and I actually wrote this over the last couple of weeks. I'm only going to say this once. I'm kind of uncomfortable saying it, but we're all aware of the situation on our planet, in our countries, our cities, even our families. I'm not going to go through the usual complaints about virus, masks, vaccines, lockdowns, censorship, elections, or any of that. What I want to share are the bits and pieces of what I know about how and why a planet and its people are targeted and taken over by aggressive races of people who are more advanced than the people they are targeting, and who then colonize the entire planet. The targeting. A planet has to have a variety of desirable resources. These resources are in the form of minerals and humans. But these are not the key resources. The key resource is location. The Earth is located toward the edge of the galaxy on the outside of one of the arms of the Milky Way. This makes a very good stopping off point for any civilization that has achieved interstellar travel, but is not sufficiently developed enough to move from point to point using vectors of consciousness. Places like Earth are useful to aggressive races of beings who are advanced technologically, but not evolved in terms of consciousness. They colonize planets that have three-dimensional reality systems, have useful minerals, and a supply of people. Once a planet has been colonized and its people enslaved, it is very difficult to free that planet. Life there becomes exceedingly difficult. The people never get a chance to enjoy the fruits of their labor, creativity does not exist, and minds are controlled in order to exact obedience to whatever demands are being made of them. Those who think that, well, we'll just give up and die, discover that there is no heaven, hell, or God waiting to save them, and all of the things they believed about the afterlife turn out to be fantasy stories. What they discover is that they are still fully alive in a body that is even easier to capture. And now they are captives in a holding system that simply recycles them back to the slave system. In targeting a planet, the supply of humans is a big consideration. Prior to the target population reaching scientific knowledge that allows for technological development, the colonizing race will simply maintain bases on the planet and try to avoid confrontations with other races that work to protect developing life and humans on many planets. All other races will be allowed to come and go freely because the colonizers do not want their intentions known. So then we come to the process of colonizing. While the humans are primitive and completely undeveloped, they are considered as mostly a liability, as somewhat dangerous trade items, and sometimes as a food source. However, once the humans begin to develop scientifically, they become quite valuable as high-level assets who understand technology and weapons systems. When this point is reached, the strategy of colonization kicks into a high gear. The hope is that they can be brought fully into the power structure of the colonizers and will help expand the efforts to colonize others. Colonization is always a long-term affair, usually being conducted over hundreds, if not thousands, of years. It involves careful planning and continuous hybridization of the target population over many generations. There will be selective disruption of families in certain areas that then produce maladjusted individuals. This is then followed by constant vigilance to identify individuals who are able to be co-opted and steady work to get these individuals into key positions that can control governments, corporations, education, and especially media. It involves carefully camouflaged social programs and systems of mythology that create competition. It involves the implementation of competing religious systems that implant ideas that power exists only outside the self. And these religious beliefs that are then used to start wars, thus keeping the population down until the takeover is complete. There will also be strategic reductions of food and medicine, a constant supply of glamorous distractions via sports and stage and screen stars, subtle psychological programming that instills doubt and undermines individual confidence, and the use of money to create systems of competition and reward. Any population, whether primitive or advanced, will notice that there are unknown craft moving about the skies and will begin to suspect that there are other kinds of people alive and well in the universe. The more the population advances scientifically, the more it will begin to try to figure out who these people are and how they are flying around at such speeds. In a targeted planet, there will be a strict policy of denial that people from other planets exist, because to admit this might open the population to figuring out what is happening to them. This denial, in tandem with psychological shaming and education for compliance, is usually effective enough to allow the takeover to be completed. Once the colonization program is well underway, the native people of the target planet will notice the closing in of many forms of restriction in thinking, speech, and action. If the colonizers have done a good job of setting up the takeover, the population will have become focused on people to blame, heroes to chase, and saviors waiting in the wings. Frequently, the last stage of the takeover will involve some type of physical disaster. This can be a war that disrupts the planet. It can be a sudden change in climate brought about by those colonizers who know how to use terraforming technology to reset frequencies. Or it can be a manufactured health crisis. Whatever approach is used, it serves several ends. One is the reduction in population to a more manageable size that is not as threatening to those seeking total control. But the biggest reason for the physical disaster is that it serves as a complete and total distraction. The population will be caught in the drama of the moment, and when the dust settles, the control will be complete. Every aspect of life on the planet will, from that point forward, be under the control of the colonizers. They will skim the cream from every system and like all overlords do, live from the blood, sweat, and tears of the population under their control. They will have their choice of men, knowing those men will be satisfied with piddly rewards, like limited control over a few people under them, a little extra in terms of financial rewards, a chance to exercise some limited creativity now and then, and a supply of other humans to satisfy their every sexual wish. They will be given access to fine houses and cars and the illusion of power. The colonizers will then have a steady supply of military people who will fight great battles that entertain the colonizers and allow them to identify the strongest generals to bring to their side. They will be able to control the attitudes, the thinking, and the behaviors of everyone on the planet. But all of these are not the main goals. They are just the means to an end. The main goals are control of a particular sector of the galaxy and the trade in humans, especially women and children. With control of a particular sector of the galaxy, they will charge other races for the right to move through this area of the galaxy or to land and refresh themselves after long journeys. They will also declare, since this is their area, that they have the right to attack anyone who does not pay transit charges, and this often gets them additional rewards in terms of bargaining power with the governing body of the planet these unfortunate victims came from. Sometimes they get new equipment, supplies, or technologies that they did not have access to previously. The colonizers will have built in numerous levels of management between themselves and the target population. This is so that if the population figures out what is happening, they will go after their own people and never know who was behind the entire setup. The perpetrators will slide away in their advanced craft and no one will be the wiser. Quite often, the population ends up destroying one another in a tremendous bout of confusion, vengeance, and anger, destroying all evidence of what was happening. This makes it easy for the colonizers to say, look, they did it to themselves, and thus avoid the persecution from those in the galaxy who work to prevent such takeovers and their subsequent disasters. These are disasters that occur whether the takeover is complete or it fails, and ignorant populations tear one another apart. The White Wall. Why do I tell you all of this? I tell you this because a couple of weeks ago, I was visited by some individuals who are not from our Earth system. These are people that I have worked with in the past. They said it was time to tell people what was on the other side of the White Wall. Perhaps you will remember that last November, I was looking ahead to see what was coming and came up against a white wall. I explained that the white wall was something I have encountered from time to time over many years of consulting, and that it meant I should stop, say no more, that there was a core lesson being learned, and whatever the decision was, it needed to be reached freely. The visitors said that the planet Earth was being colonized, and the lesson on the other side of the white wall had to do with whether or not we caved in or stood our ground and refused to back down in the face of what appeared to be a solid wall of corruption. It had to do with not really understanding how much was at risk, yet holding on to hope and steadily moving forward as if law and order were still in place. Because of this refusal to back down, the colonizers at the very, very top had given up and left. They gave up because too many people were awake and resistant, and they could read the writing on the wall, so to speak. However, still in place is the massive network of interlocking corporations and individuals who were complicit, sometimes unknowingly, in the takeover effort. There's currently a struggle at the very, very top to continue managing the numerous levels and structures of power that have been running things and to suppress the knowledge of the fact that the takeover plan has been abandoned. Since very few were aware of this takeover, it's not that difficult to suppress because most people would think that such a story is a fiction. Those now at the top and suppressing this information have been hoping to step into the shoes of those who were calling the shots and thus gain some power and preserve their lifestyle. This will not work over the long term because they are too focused on narrow, self-centered concerns. They lack the mindset, the technology, the vision, and especially the backing from off-planet systems. The result will be the slow implosion of the numerous levels of global corporate management that were put in place to insulate the perpetrators from the population. The population, many of whom never realized what was going on anyway, is not aware that there has been a change. This means that we are in the stage of, quote, about to tear one another apart in confusion, vengeance, and anger, which is the usual planned ending for a takeover that has been abandoned. The decision that is needed now is exactly the opposite of what all colonizers hope will occur. The population must begin the process of coming together as a planetary civilization. The long-term result of doing so will be freedom, peace, health, abundance, and other good things, as well as inclusion in and protection by others in our galaxy who make it their business to nurture life and assist those trying to take a step into what's usually referred to as higher consciousness. The message. After being told that I should tell people what was on the other side of the white wall, I asked if that would ruin the lesson. The answer was pretty close to the following. It will not ruin the lesson. It is very late for some people to be waking up to what has been going on, and some will never wake up, but enough of you have continued to reach for the truth and the light of a more expansive consciousness. Some of you already knew what was taking place. Some suspected that this was happening, meaning the takeover. Enough of you have awakened. Enough of you have refused to resort to violence. Enough of you have held fast to what you have hoped would be a return to law and order. This has earned you the right to see a little more, be given a little more information. It is very late in the game. Those who have chosen the side of truth and life are not going to change their mind because of this information. They have already made their decision and will welcome it. Those few who have not chosen yet or who have been uncertain of who or what to believe may come across this information and be helped to make a decision that commits them to goodness, truth, and beauty. Those who are confirmed on the side of the colonizers are not likely to be swayed. It is our hope that knowing what was at stake will help you hang on, and the population will not tear itself apart, but will come together magnificently. End of that message. So in conclusion, in sharing what I know about planets that awaken and come together, our coming together will be a slow process over many years, first getting quiet inside ourselves, then making sure that everybody has what they need in terms of food, clothing, shelter, transportation, and communication. Then we will need to begin meeting, spending some of our precious time and energy to communicate and assess our situation. We will have to affirm our ethics and values, acknowledge the truths of what we have just been through, list the challenges ahead, share what we've learned that will help handle those challenges, and find out what is now possible for humanity. We will have to assess our technology, use that technology to create beauty and abundance, take apart those things that are destructive or no longer needed, and map out goals that will allow us to develop spiritually enough to match our technology. We will have to turn already existing technologies toward positive ends, set goals for the further development of technologies that will help us evolve and live much longer, and become an interstellar civilization. It's my hope that we will continue to awaken and to unfold our tremendous potential as wise and powerful beings in our corner of the galaxy. Thank you for listening, and take heart. I think we're turning the corner.